welcome to Pursue the Pull, the podcast that is geared towards helping people who are looking for a career change or for those who want to pursue their dreams and start their own business. Now, how do we differ from all of the other inspirational podcasts out there? Well, what we do is we interview people from a range of industries. So if you want to set up your own marketing agency or yoga studio or restaurant, whatever it might be, we have someone specific from that industry to tell you how to start, the highs and lows, and most importantly, the truth. Now, we are one group, one community, and we have all of the answers. I am your host, Stacey Bevan, and today I have an amazing guest. So I am joined with the incredible David Puck, who is an artist working in traditional painting, makeup, digital video content, and public murals. And you've worked with some amazing organisations, including Savage X Fenty, Hard Rock, Ralph Lauren, and many more, but we're going to go into all of that. So first of all, thank you for joining us, David. We really appreciate you being here and the insight you're about to give us.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Great. All right. So before we actually go into the questions that have been devised by our audience, I just want to give a bit of background into what it is that you actually do. So you are a British multidisciplinary artist working in traditional painting, makeup, digital, video content, and public murals. Your work explores human experience and mental health, exploring areas of identity, narrative, psychology, sociology, and philosophy. You're originally from the UK, like myself, and work between there, Los Angeles, and you're also traveling. Now, you've worked with organisations like HBO, Savage X Fenty, Hard Rock, Ralph Lauren, the Eurovision Song Contest, LA and NYC Prides, Faith Evans, and organisations such as Amazon Prime, BBC Three, so Eating with My Ex, ABC, and Bravo, so the Housewives of Beverly Hills, to be more specific. You have murals all around the world, from the Hollywood Walk of Fame to rural India, and you've been featured in publications like Beautiful Bazaar. You'll have to help me with this. Is it Juxtapoz?
Juxtapose.
Yeah, that's the one. High Fructose, Beautiful Bazaar, World of Wonder, and BuzzFeed. You also work closely with local communities, which I love, and artists, often collaborating and creating community engagement. And now, and going forward, you recently started offering commercial murals designed to any brief. Previously, you only did your signature abstract portraits, but you also recently started offering digital portrait commissions as a more affordable options than traditional paintings and murals. So your performance art is developing rapidly, also in stand-up, improv, and alternative drag. So this is incredible. I can't wait to get started. So give me your background. So what did you do before, you started this, and how did it all come about? Where did this passion come from? So were you employed, then went into it? So how did it all start? Give us your background.
Yeah, sure. Can I just say first, it's so funny hearing all of that back at me, because I feel like I've listened to a story of my own life. And I'm like, oh, wow, I did all of those things.
You did all of that. Major achievement.
I watched a performance of myself the other day in order to edit it and post it. And I literally watched it and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I could never do that. And I was like, David, that is you. Like, you are doing that.
You're doing it. That's why we've got you here. Amazing achievements. And that's what we're just eager to know. Tell me, how did this all start?
Yeah, so, well, at the moment, because there's a lot there, right? Because I do like to dabble in a lot of areas. So I guess to simplify it, especially from like a business standpoint and from what the majority of those like big brands, big organizations, it's murals. It's like painting murals, street art, and like gallery paintings. And then I also do the performance, the makeup, the digital art. Those are like other strands. And I think that's pretty common for artists, is like we have like one thing or one or two things that we're really known for, but then creatives like to explore lots of different things. So you end up having all these other spokes, and sometimes one becomes more important from a business or from a brand side, and then sometimes others. But for me, it's definitely been the murals is like my main thing that I'm known for. And how did I start doing it? Well, it's kind of a long story. I don't know. Do we want the short
Tell us,
version?
yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, I'll try and do a shortish version, but yeah. So I always painted. Like I loved painting as a child. It was like one of those kind of safe spaces for me. Like I loved to just spend time alone drawing. And then when it came to choosing university in the UK, as you know, obviously we don't get to choose majors and minors. Like you just have to choose one subject.
Yeah.
So it's basically like art or academics. And how it was presented to me was like employment or no employment. Basically, like if you do art, like you're giving up an opportunity to actually like have a good job. So I got very encouraged to go the academic route. So I actually stopped painting from the ages of like 18 to 25. And for those 7 years, I studied history. I studied queer history. Like that wasn't the title of it, but I focused my thesis on queer history.
Yeah.
And I was exploring other things, but mostly I very much was in a non-artistic role. So I started working and interning in like marketing, sometimes for arts organizations. I did some like administrative roles. So at the time, I really didn't see myself as an artist. Like all of my friends had gone to art school, they'd spent many years developing their skills. And I lost like any confidence that I had with it. And I was like, okay, I'm an academic, so I can support artists. So I did that for a while and I just was miserable. Like I was living in London. I was like, is this really what life is? Like I had loads of mental health issues as well, which then comes back into why I explore that in art also. And so it took like a long time until eventually I just kind of wiped everything away and I left the UK and I looked at myself and my life and I was like, what do I actually want? Like, aside from what people have told me I should be doing, aside from what the world says is successful or not, what what do I actually enjoy doing? And what it came back to was like me painting as a child.
Yeah.
And I was like 26, 27. I just had this like spiritual moment where I felt like I'd been like reborn. And I moved to Berlin and I just painted nonstop. Some days I wouldn't leave the house for like 3 days at a time. It was very intense.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. Like I'd basically come back to what I kind of had always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then from then, I was just really painting was my main love. And it kind of just like steamed on from then. And like it started with me just creating a lot of work, then working with people. And then eventually that led to decisions that meant that I could make money from it, that it could become my job. And now that's opened up space for me to be like, oh, well, people really like these paintings that I do, but also there's loads of other things that I never even thought I'd be capable of doing, like theater, like comedy, because I was not the kind of kid to do that. I was a very shy child. But through like flourishing as an artist and like finding success in that, I've been able to like grow more as a person and like change my self-image. So now I'm doing all these other things that we're talking about as well. And yeah, it just kind of felt like a snowball. And it's been very up and down, like obviously with COVID. So because the period I'm talking about now is the last like 5 years. Okay. So 2 years of that was COVID, which put like a massive like stick in the wheels. Yeah. But so it hasn't been a complete upward trajectory. But it's been going really well. And now I'm living in New York. I haven't updated my bio yet, but I just moved to New York and I'm super happy and I love it here.
Incredible. So what you're actually saying is that you just kind of went back to your passion, but you didn't really, when you went back to your passion, you wasn't really thinking, I'm going to make money from this. This is going to be my sole income. You wasn't really thinking like that. It was more just you just wanted to do what you love, and then it kind of fell into the way of you earning money, really. So is that how it came about? So there was no plan, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make money and this and this. You just kind of went into it and it grew organically, I suppose.
Yeah, that's definitely accurate. Like I even when I was looking at jobs before, the marketing, those kind of jobs, like my focus was always like, I want to enjoy myself. Like, so I'm 31 and I feel like I grew up with watching a lot of media you know, the miserable person in the cubicle who hates their job and can't wait to like live for the weekend. That was a very strong image that was like,
Yeah.
I grew up in fear of. I was really afraid of being that person. And it kind of propelled me to be like, I really want to do a job that I actually enjoy. And like, yeah, we have to like make money and we have to survive. And obviously I have a big part of me that wants to be successful and has ambition.
Yeah.
But it was really, the core was always like, I want to have a good time. I want to enjoy myself. So when I came to painting, that was the focus. Like, I'm doing it because I love it. And then really the desire to make money from it more was just like, if I have to spend time working another job, that's time that I don't get to paint. That's energy that I don't get to paint. And like, and then also I have to socialize. I have to like leave the house. Like, I have to live my life. And it's very common actually for artists that a lot of people spend many years working two jobs. They have their actual job and then they have their trying to create their art job.
Yeah.
And they're working basically two full-time jobs until eventually they can make money as an artist. And I was like, I can't do that. You know, like if I'm working a full-time job, I'm spending my evenings hanging out with friends. I'm not going to go home and want to paint. So it was kind of just a necessary part of it. That it's like, if I want to paint all the time, I have to make money from it, unfortunately. So that was like
that makes complete sense. And a lot of people are in that position right now where they have to, you know, work a full-time job, but they want to make that leap into doing what they love. You say there was fear in terms of looking at employment and being, you know, permanently employed in a job that you didn't like. But did you have fear going into this as a business? So there must have been an element of fear. Was there any self-doubt or anything like that? And if there was, how did you kind of overcome that, if you like?
Yeah, there was a lot. Yeah, I think a big like theme of my life is like, I have a lot of fear. I was like born and I had a childhood where I was conditioned into a lot of fear. So like a story of my life is how to like confront and move through fear and to not be controlled by it. And now I'm in a really amazing place with it. But there was a period of time where I would get very frustrated because I'm just kind of like, how many fears do I have to confront? Like, why is it? But this is like another one. Like, how many things can you be afraid of? I was like, come on, this is enough now. You can't be afraid of everything. But in terms of the painting and like doing art as your job, basically, the big fears was the instability of income for sure. Because even when it started to go well, so basically the timeline of what I did is that to explain it, is that I was working other jobs, but I was doing jobs that were like seasonal. So you could basically work like 14 hours a day every day, but then you would earn a year's income within like 4 months, for example. So I would put all of my work into one little section and like basically not have a life. Like I would live on site and just work constantly. And that would get me enough money to at least survive in a cheap place like Berlin, which is where I was living. And then I would spend all of that time living very cheaply, but just painting. And I did that for quite a while. So I was living very, very low amount financially, but it gave me the time to be able to just paint and paint and paint. But then I moved to California and I moved to LA, and that was the transition to like, to afford to live here, it's a lot more expensive than Berlin. I need to actually be earning money from this. And like, this was kind of an intentional move to be like, I want to earn money from painting. I don't want to have to be working 4 months a year in some intensive other job, which also wasn't stable. And then in that moment, there was a lot of fear about like, is the next job going to come? Because especially, so like within visual art, but I guess arts in general, there's a lot of different ways that you can earn money and a lot of different sort of types of business. My one with murals, the type of business it is that I get big projects infrequently. So I only really needed one project a month and I was fine, sometimes even less, and I could survive. But it's like the fear, to go back to your question, the big fear was like, is that project going to come in? And I think for some people, when they rely more on sort of lower price but higher sales, maybe that fits a little bit less because you can look at the numbers and you're like, I'm consistently getting 100 sales, 100 sales. Whereas for me, if I just didn't get that one sale, then I couldn't afford rent that month. So that was like a huge figure. Yeah. And like when I first moved there, I was like living out of my car for the first 6 months. Yeah, it was intense. It was like an intense move to like make it work.
Wow. So you
Yeah.
sacrificed a lot. And, I suppose there wasn't really any cost involved in terms of doing your artwork. So there wasn't cost that you had to have to kind of set up this business, if you like. It was more cost of living that you needed and money that you needed to make to live, really.
Yeah, exactly. Because that is one thing that's nice and actually attracted me to painting initially is that it is quite a low cost art form.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because like it obviously does cost money and like it adds up over time, but you're able to even paint like a giant mural. You can get house paint from a hardware store and you can paint that pretty cheaply. So it's really just the time and yeah, the cost of living, especially when you're in a place like New York or LA or England, like it's expensive to just exist. Like even if you're not like out there, like I've never been someone to go to restaurants. Like I don't flash money. Like it's just not my way. But it's
Yeah.
still just expensive to exist. Like it's
So
crazy.
that period that you said that you were really struggling for that 6 month period, what kept you motivated to thinking, okay, this is going to work. I am going to eventually make money out of this. Like, what kept you going? Was there anyone or anything that you did that inspired you, or how did that motivation? How did you keep going? Why did you not feel like giving up? And
Yeah, it's interesting. I think because like describing it now, it sounds kind of like, oh my God, I was like sleeping in my car and like, oh, I had super unstable finances. And so it sounds like dark, but actually I was having such a good time. Like I loved it. And like yeah, I was living out of my car because I didn't feel like I could afford rent, but also I enjoyed living out of my car. Like it's
exactly,
just like yeah, I was like camping. So like it was also my choice. And I think that
yeah,
probably helped with the motivation is that it was always my choice. Like I'm choosing to be here, I'm choosing to want to make art. And so like this isn't a sad story. This is like
yeah.
it's fun. It's like funny that I'm like living in a car.
It's amazing. And how did you manage to get that like first sale?
Yeah, I'm thinking back to it now because yeah, it's funny, especially when I look back on it, that when I was in Berlin, I did sell one painting for a very, very small amount just online.
Hmm.
And so initially, like business wise, initially my sort of tactic was Instagram. So before
Okay.
I'd worked with any galleries, any project, anything, before I'd really done anything, I was growing my Instagram, and I very intentionally would because in my head, and I do think I was correct that that is the most accessible way that you can start to like get ahead in creative industry because you don't need to know anyone. You literally just like it, you post online, you go around, you comment on everyone's post, you like people, you engage with other people. And if you have good work, people are going to want to follow you back. And I guess it was also the marketing side of me that I was always very interested in like staying true to my work and what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And me, a really like core part of what I create is queer murals. So like murals of drag queens, murals of like visible queer people.
Yeah.
And that's like if I was to define my brand, that's what it would be. Um, I don't like thinking in those terms, but if I was going to do it, since we're talking about business, and so it was really like focusing in on that and like what strategies can I use to be seen, like by staying true to my work and what I enjoy, but also to just be seen. And my tactic was really like, if I can be seen by a million people, at least one of them is going to want to buy a painting,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that was always my approach. Like the more visibility, the more likely that the sales will just come in. And on my end, because I really am not a sales minded person, like you can probably tell already, like I really don't like capitalism. I
Yeah.
don't like money, which is funny. Like we're on a business podcast, but but my tactic for that was then like, well, if I don't want to be the one engaging with like, oh, I'm going to go out there and make sales and make money or whatever, like I'm going to engage with what I do enjoy, which is art, which is publicity, which is making something that people are interested in looking at.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna and then I made it clear that if you want to buy something from me, you can. But that meant the sales always came to me. I was like very rarely making sales, and that's
Yeah.
actually still true even to this day. Like all the big projects I've done, like the ones you listed, all of those people came to me. Like I haven't been applying, I haven't been messaging or making contacts in like corporate world. Like they literally have emailed me being like, "Oh, hey, we've seen your work and we want to work with you." So yeah,
That
and
is
that's true for like all
incredible.
the big projects I've done. Yeah. Um,
So
so
that's
that's
how
been
you
like,
grew it. That's how it is where it is today, because they came to you. You just made sure you put yourself out there, but you didn't do any hard sales or door knocking or do you want to work with
no.
me and so on. That's
I would
incredible.
say the one version of that I did do, but often like stuff hasn't really come from it, is
Yeah.
applying to projects. Like when they have open calls, I do like occasionally sit down and I'll like send out loads of emails. And
Yeah.
so I am kind of knocking on doors in that way. But honestly, like when it comes to the big projects, the reason they came to me was because of like the fact that I built a following and a brand, and I had something specific that other people weren't offering.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I do think the door knock, I don't know. And I've started door knocking now. Like I actually flyered the other day for the first time ever. Like I just moved to New York and I was like, I've never done flyering before, so I'm just gonna
Yeah.
try it. So like, but I guess also a lesson you could take from that is like I enjoy trying new things. Like I don't like just staying with one strategy, because
Yeah.
it's fun to try new things, you know? It's like I've never been flyering, so
Really?
like I'll try it. And I think that's pretty good for business, you know? It's like it's all like a game. We're just like
Yeah.
playing with, so like hopefully I'm trying to think about like what value can people actually get out of listening to this. And I'm like, well,
No,
that's one of the
just you talking and just being
things.
yourself. You've already given a lot of value already. In
Oh, thank
terms
you.
of like, since the business has grown and you've been getting clients and so on. So have you had any kind of real challenges at this latter stage that you've had to overcome? Is there anything that's happened that's made you feel like, oh, I'm just gonna give up, or any big challenges that kind of made you think, okay, this isn't going to go anywhere forward? Like, is there anything that's happened since you've actually grown the business that you've had to face?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think, well, one element is that before I had bigger projects, or before I was like making money from art, I had this idea in my head that like you kind of make it. Um, so like you're either not doing well or suddenly you like become successful and like big brands want to work with you or whatever,
Yeah.
and then and it's done. But actually it's really not like that. Like it's this constant wheel that just constantly needs turning. So even after doing these big projects, it's not like I was set for life, you know? Like I had to keep that wheel turning if I wanted to keep
Yeah.
doing stuff. So that was a challenge in a way, because it is like a constant grind,
Yeah.
um, which sounds kind of discouraging, but I think it kind of does dispel a little bit of this like fantasy that it's like work is work and you have to keep working. Um, and especially so I guess related also is like burnout was a huge challenge for me. Like I was working really, really hard for like the
Yeah.
first few years, and it kind of coincided with COVID also, that I just completely burned out and I did lose a lot of my passion for painting. And um, that led me to finding other things like theatre, which I'm now developing a lot more.
Yeah.
And now because of that, I've now come back and I am painting and I am enjoying it again. But there was a good 2 year period where I really didn't want to paint anymore, and it was really difficult. Like I had a big like identity crisis, because
Yeah.
it was my identity, it was my job, it was, I described earlier how powerful the experience of coming back to painting was. So to not want to do it anymore was like really difficult. Um, but thankfully I'm through the other end of that now. But that was a huge challenge, because as like a creative, your job is more than just your job. Like your business is
Yeah.
more than your business. It's you. It's like the reason we do it is because it's a part of us. And so when it's not going well, or when you don't want to do it anymore, that's like a huge existential
Yeah.
difficulty. that you might not necessarily have if your business is like more detached from yourself as a person. So yeah, that was a big challenge.
I
And
mean,
yeah, still just money instability is the other one. It kind of
yeah,
relates to my first point that like it's a constant grind. Because I feel like earlier when I said, oh, people came to me, it made it sound easy. Like it's not easy. Like I'm
no,
constantly working all the time.
yeah,
But it's more what I meant by that is that the big projects, they wanted me. Like I had to do all of these other projects, all this other work. I had to do all these other things in order to become something that was desirable to these bigger people. Whereas like me knocking on the door of like the CEO of Ralph Lauren, like they're just gonna ignore me. Like it doesn't, you know what I mean? So that's kind of more what I was getting at. But yeah, so but again, the instability of it is hard, you know. And like I talk,
yeah.
some of my friends have more conventional jobs, and I'm just like, it's wild. Like you get paid sick days, you get paid to go on holiday during COVID. You got covered. I get none of those things.
Yeah,
And if I don't get another job through, like I don't have money.
yeah, yeah.
And like it's funny, and it's even funny sometimes. Some of my friends complain about things, and I'm just like, that's like about their workplace. I'm like that sounds amazing. Like you get so many perks.
No, I completely, I do think the same sometimes. But how did you know that this was the right path for you? How did you know that this was the route that you should take and it was the right path that you was on from the start? You said how you identified your passion, you just had this love for painting and then you just kind of went with it. It wouldn't leave you, you know, and then you kind of went with it. But how did you know that this was the right path and that you shouldn't just turn around and then go and work for companies and do all of that? How did you know that?
I think initially, like I had a really strong reaction against the conventional work world. Like I did not have a good time at university. I did not have a good time working afterwards, and I found it incredibly restrictive and like exploitative.
Yeah.
So I was just like, and like maybe a lot of it isn't, but just for
Yeah.
me, that was my experience. And so I had a really strong reaction of like, I do not want to do that. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
signing my life away to work for someone else who doesn't care about me.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a really big thing. It's like, well, I knew this was right for me because I didn't want what the world was offering
Yeah.
elsewhere. And like, yeah, the passion that you identified, like that was a big part. Like I just knew, well, this is the activity I want to do. So I'll make it work job and business wise in order to do this activity. But I have had times like during that 2 year period I described where I didn't want to paint anymore. I did go back to doing other jobs. I actually started training as a therapist, which I think I will still do in the future because mental health is super important to me,
Yeah.
but just not right now. I was working as a mental health support worker. I worked in schools, so I have actually had periods of time where I have explored other areas that
Yeah.
are more conventional. And I got a lot of value out of them. But I think mostly, like, for me, the freedom that this type of work gives you, that being self employed gives you, is so valuable because it's unlimited. Like, there is no ceiling. Like, and whereas what I found in conventional work is you're constantly being met with ceilings, either of the role you're in before you can get promoted, or of your experience, or of like other people around you.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very limited. And I think that's kind of the duality that I guess is key, is like you have safety, but then you have limitation.
Yeah.
Whereas like what self-employed as an artist, especially self-employed in general, gives you is like it doesn't feel as safe, but it's like unlimited what you can do.
Yeah. And the same with money. There's limitations with money when you're employed as well, full time, and that kind of goes when you work for yourself.
Yeah, totally. Like you could possibly end up earning a lot more than you would
Yeah.
have like a salaried position. Um, I'm not at that point myself yet, but maybe someday.
So, coming on to like the last question. This is a two-part question, though. So, I want to know, what advice would you give to, first of all, someone that wants to work for themselves but have a lot of fear? And then the second part to that question is, what advice would you give to someone that wanted to go into and do exactly what it is that you're doing? Because I actually got quite a few requests of people wanting me to interview artists. So, there's a lot of people that are interested. So the two-part question: advice to people that want to go into their own business, that's really scared and have a lot of self-doubt, and then advice to people that want to do exactly what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, great. So the first one, advice to people in general, I think if you're afraid, honestly, I think the best investment that you can do is like go to therapy and like look at yourself, look at your fear, and like really explore like what that is. And that is like, because me, I've been in therapy for like 4 years, and like 3 years has been like quite intense, like trauma therapy. And so, and my experience in mental health, like I really do believe, I'm on my soapbox now, but I really do believe in our culture, the vast majority of people have some form of developmental trauma that leads to them having a lot more fear than is necessary. So if you feel like if you have this strong passion in you to do something, but you're afraid, like, why are you afraid? And like, especially if it's stopping you from doing it. So I would, that's what I'd say is invest in therapy, because even though it can be expensive, there are options that you can get it really cheap or free, depending on where you are. But it's an investment, because like, even if you're spending like, I don't know, however many hundreds a year, or thousands maybe, I can't do maths off the top of my head, but even you're spending, like, that's an investment in yourself. And not only is it going to pay off for your business and to be able to actually go and do it, but it's also going to pay off for you, like in your life as a person. So just think about that. Like, if you have business goals and you're like, well, I'm going to be earning 50 grand, 100 grand in like 10 years time, well, then spend 1,000 of that on therapy now, and it'll help you get there. So that's honestly the main advice I would give, because I think to look at like anything else is so individual. Like, I could say like general advice about like, oh, try this, try that, but really it's just about what is holding you back specifically, and how can you like understand and learn about that so you can move through it. And for me, it's just like, oh my God, it's changed everything. It's
incredible. And then for people that want to do exactly what you're doing and they want to get started, and again, they've probably got a bit of fear or not even sure how to start, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, for artists specifically, I think that like, because it can be so many different areas. They're all different depending on what type of art you do. So I think looking at people who already do what you want to do, like me, right? Like, if you're a mural painter, message me on Instagram, tell me your situation, and I'll happily like help you with whatever I know. But I really believe that everyone's situation is like quite individual. So find someone in your field and just message them, like, if somebody has like under 50,000 followers, you'd be surprised. Like, if they're not a super big celebrity, like, you'd be surprised that people are like pretty easy to get hold of in this day and age, and people will reply. I always reply to people, and then obviously there'll be a limit to that. Like, we're not getting free business coaching, but just to hear from someone that's really going to know your situation. And then, so I guess if you are specifically doing like mural painting, what I think helped me more than anything was really honing in on my niche and me. And like, what I loved and cared about and what made me was drag, queerness, painting, traveling, being outside, talking with people. And all of that like led to me doing queer drag murals. And I really do believe that's the reason why I've been able to be successful, is just because I had this niche. And the only reason I found it was because I followed what was unique about me and what I enjoyed. So I was not trying to fit in. It was the opposite, actually. Like, it made it much harder to get into certain projects, certain galleries, because they didn't want like queer stuff. They didn't want what I was doing. But I just like focused in on that. And it like pays off in the end, because nobody else is doing what you're doing. Like, nobody else is you. And like, that's the whole point of like being an artist, I think, is that it's about like exploration of yourself in the world. So it's like the point trying to do something to please others or to like play a business game. It's like just actually follow what is like in you.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
yeah. And if you feel like you don't have something unique about you, like you do, it's just maybe it hasn't had the chance to like flourish. Like I didn't do theater until 2 years ago. So if you'd asked me 5 years ago, like, oh, like, do you have something unique about you for performance? I'd be like, no, of course I don't. But actually I do. I do have it in me. I never developed it because I didn't even think that it was possible for me. So if you're at that point, which I'm sure some people are, that you don't have that confidence, you don't have that like belief in yourself. I mean, this probably isn't going to help, but I just want to say, like, you do. Like,
You do.
you have it in you. Just like make, just keep making.
No, look, that is incredible advice. And we've come to the end. Time has flown. I could sit here and talk to you for hours, to be honest. But time has flown. But you have given some incredible insight. And thank you so much. You're in New York and you've taken this time out to come on this podcast and give all of our audience advice. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
I super enjoyed it. Thanks so much for like having me on. Yeah.
We'll have you on again. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you. Bye.